Oh, not the video I wanted to make today. Sadly, Ozzy Osbourne has passed away at the age of 76. Okay, it's a good run for a guy that lived that hard, but still sad. And I wanted to make an impromptu video just to pay my respects, talk about memories, go through some songs, share some stories, and just remember a heavy metal legend. I've got my computer out here, and I was looking at his past albums, starting with Black Sabbath. And of course, the song Black Sabbath is one that everyone remembers because of those epic three notes. The one that always stands out to me from this album is The Wizard. I've got two older brothers, and they're the ones who got me into Ozzy, but they are 10 and 7 years older than me. And when they were in high school, they used to tell me there's this English teacher in the 10th grade who teaches a unit on poetry, and he uses The Wizard as one of the lessons. So as I was coming up the grades, I could not wait for this. And I was hoping he was still going to do it by the time I reached the 10th grade. Sure enough, he did. I don't think everyone in the class knew that they were learning a Black Sabbath song, but I certainly did. And another cool fact about The Wizard is that's Ozzy playing harmonica on that track. I'm not sure if you knew that, maybe you did, but that one surprised me when I learned it. And Ozzy apparently was one hell of a harmonica player. Another awesome track from this album is NIB. It opens up with that great bass solo, and then the riff comes in. And it's one of those songs where Ozzy just couldn't think of anything better than singing the melody almost exactly according to the riff. I know he used to get some grief for this, at least from certain people I knew when I was younger. They used to talk about that. But sometimes when the riff is so good, just follow it with the melody. It makes the song easy to remember and easy to sing along to. And I won't go into too much detail on Sabbath, but of course, War Pigs. That my friends and I used to love this tune. The big thing was who can come in on those hits. And you've got that dun-dun, you've got those two hits. So that was always the contest. We would all sit still. We'd be taking a road trip down to Cape Cod, and we'd all have our hands on the back of a seat or on the dashboard, and we'd wait for those two hits to come in. And, if anyone missed it or messed up, of course, we'd give them a ton of grief. Obviously, love Planet Caravan on this one. That was just such a cool, moody kind of tune. And it surprised me when I first heard it because I had heard all the heavier songs from Sabbath. But that one was awesome. And of course, the Pantera cover of it later on, so good. Dimebag has an incredible solo on that one. And then we get to his Ozzy days. And Blizzard of Oz being the first album, I remember seeing that album cover and the way he was holding that cross. I mean, I was a little kid in CCD, if you're familiar with that. I guess some people call it Sunday school. But I was doing that when I was a kid. So when I saw this album cover, I knew that was one I had to hide from my parents. And I loved Ozzy's album art. That's the thing about Ozzy. It wasn't just music. It was just like the whole thing. It was the album art. It was kind of like the controversy, the mystique, and the persona, really. And this album just has, I basically could go over every single song here. But I just remember as a guitar player, hearing songs like I Don't Know and Crazy Train. Those were really good songs for alternate picking. And while I wasn't playing guitar as a little kid, those songs were definitely embedded in my mind early on. And then later, when I was about 14 and I did pick up a guitar, those were some of the songs I wanted to learn, and it helps me a lot with my alternate picking. D was also a really cool one. That was the short instrumental that Randy played. And it was finger picking, and it had more of a classical feel. That's where Randy let out his classical influences. Suicide Solution reminds me of when my friend and I were getting older, and we were kind of like following old news stories about Ozzy. This is the one where, I don't know who it was, if it was like a politician or something, but they were trying to say that Ozzy's song was promoting suicide. And they were claiming there was a part in the song that said, get the gun, get the gun, and shoot, 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 shoot. That's how the guy like quoted the song. My friend and I used to die laughing at this square old man who just didn't understand the music, only saw the bad in it, and was trying to make it out to be something it wasn't. We still recount that news clip to this day and just crack up laughing. Goodbye to Romance, love it. I have the guitar solo to that on my channel. I posted it like 100 years ago, before I let the channel die. And obviously nowadays I'm trying to wake it back up. But I've got that solo on here. And of course I can't mention this album without mentioning Mr. Crowley. What moment in that song isn't incredible? Oh man, then Diary. So Ozzy definitely ramped up the intensity in terms of album covers here. Yeah, and this one's got tracks like Over the Mountain. I just love that single note idea. The riff is kind of chugging along, and then it does that da 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 da. I'm not singing it correctly, but if you know the song, you know the part. I just love that. It's so satisfying, and it sounds so full and big. I think Randy probably double tracked that. He was known to double track solos at least. And then Flying High Again. What a solo. I remember being a teenager and learning that solo, and the tapping part is really cool, and it's kind of like a release after you get through all the speedy parts that came before it. I think You Can't Kill Rock and Roll is one of the most beautiful, I'll call it a ballad, from Ozzy's catalog. I just love that song. That causes those waves of nostalgia when I hear that. I get flooded with memories and miss the past so much when I hear that song. I really love it. And a couple of other highlights are Little Dolls, I think is an awesome song. Just really cool ideas in that song, good riffing, good melodies. Tonight kind of showed that Ozzy can be cheesy. I always thought that song was kind of corny, but in a good way. SATO is a great riff and a great song. And Diary of a Madman is a masterpiece. And Randy here, I don't know if you know this, but I did study classical guitar in college, and that riff idea from the opening, those single notes, that is straight from a classical piece or a study, I believe. I can't remember the exact title of it, but I remember in college when I learned it, I was like, wait, this is Diary of a Madman. So Randy definitely borrowed from that piece. My buddy and I used to make fun of the way Ozzy sang Bark at the Moon. We used to say Bark at the Moan. And just had a blast as kids with this album cover, the werewolf theme. Again, we were like at kind of a perfect age to discover this music. I wasn't old enough when this was released. It was released in '83. So I was like 2 years old at the time. But when we did come across this, when we saw that album art, again, it was like fun, but also scared you a little bit. We were right at that age where it could do both. And we used to have so much fun singing along to this tune. Here's where Jake E. Lee comes into the picture. Just insane guitarist and a good follow-up to Randy, you know. I bet a lot of people thought Ozzy was done after Randy passed away, but yeah, that's something we learned when we were growing up, that Ozzy had a knack for choosing guitarists. I don't know how true that is. I don't know if he had like people that worked with him and chose his musicians, or it really was him. I can't verify that either way. Maybe you can. But he always had just incredible guitar players. That was kind of like the thing for Ozzy. Jake E. Lee was a beast. And the next album, as I'm looking through the discography, is The Ultimate Sin. And I have got the original cassette. Let me see if the camera will grab this. Yeah, sorry if it's having trouble with the focus. But this is an original cassette of The Ultimate Sin. And you can see by the tape inside, it is in progress. I must have stopped it. And that might have been one of the last cassettes I listened to when I had a cassette player. But this thing is worn down. It was one of my favorite albums. That's another Jake E. Lee album. And just so many great songs on this one. A lot of these are just epics, you know. I think of, Killer of Giants. It's a great song. And Jake Ely, like the way he writes is so unusual, but he really takes you on a journey. I love all the songs off this album. Shot in the Dark is on this one, and I do also have a cover of that song. Again, it's from like 15 years ago, but I'm going to re-record it. Just a few more albums. I didn't follow Ozzy's catalog like too far past Osmosis. But yeah, No Rest for the Wicked. This one was a trip because here's where Zakk Wylde comes into the mix. And my friend and I just love Zakk Wylde. We got all his solo albums and just followed him anywhere he went. Because Zakk was really an enigma. When you watch him play on his guitar instructionals, he can rip country guitar like chicken picking. So you can see he's got that bass, but at least at this time, his heart was in metal. And actually, I mean, you can see how his career played out. It stayed that way. But that is such an interesting mix of the country chops plus the metal aptitude. And I think he's got some really interesting riffs and solos because of that. And yeah, this was really fun. Miracle Man, that was really fun for my buddy and I to look into the history of that, like why Ozzy wrote it. What's the line? Little Jimmy Sinner got caught with his pants down, something like that. So that was my friend and I learning about the real world as we grew up. And it's just got some awesome tune. I love Breaking All the Rules, Crazy Babies, great opening riff. And for me, Fire in the Sky is when I hear the beginning to that song with the pulsing bass drum and like the synthesizers and, when the guitars finally break in. There's something about that song. There's a longing to it that I really love. And it gives me a rush of memories from, when I was a young teenager. And, my family was all living in the same house. My mom, dad, my two brothers, and I. I had my best friend across the street. And school was exciting. This is when I was just deep in the throes of music. I knew which way I was going. I was already a drummer in a band, and I knew I wanted to learn guitar, and ended up studying in college and becoming a music teacher. So that song represents a really special time for me. Mr. Tinker Train, I don't feel gets the love it deserves. I love that song. I Don't Want to Change the World has one of the best choruses that I think Ozzy has ever come up with. Mama, I'm Coming Home was one my friend and we learned every note to that. Desire was a fun one. When we were younger, we used to have sleepovers in the backyard in tents and stayed up, waited for his parents to fall asleep, drank Hawaiian Punch to get like a sugar high, and both put on our Walkman headphones and blasted Desire to get our energy pumped up. And then we snuck out of the tents in the middle of the night and just caused havoc throughout the neighborhood. So that's my memory from the No More Tears album. And truth be told, Time After Time from this album is one of my favorite Ozzy tracks. Of course, Cyndi Lauper basically owns that keyword, but Ozzy's Time After Time is so good. Zakk's guitar sound is really interesting. The riff is really interesting. It's just all around a beautiful song, and it's really well put together. I just love it. The last Ozzy album I'll talk about, and I hope you're still with me. Like I said, I just wanted to kind of shoot the breeze and talk about Ozzy songs and memories. I hope you're enjoying this. And if you've got anything to share, memories, songs, whatever it is, hit me up in the comments. But Osmosis, what an album. I love the drum sound on this album. And it's a really weird drum sound, isn't it? I don't know how to describe it. I don't know why the word like papery always comes to mind. I don't even think that's accurate, but do you know what I mean? There's something about the drum sound. They're just really dry. I think about No More Tears, and I think the drummer on that was Randy Castillo, if I remember correctly. And his drums, I think, had a ton of reverb on them. But these drums, to me, felt like a lot more dry. And maybe I'm just remembering it wrong, but that's how it felt. Big drum sound, really pronounced. Perry Mason, wow, what a riff. What a way to open the album. I Just Want You, so good. The riff in the chorus is awesome. Simple, and I think one of Zach's best. I also love See You on the Other Side. And that reminds me, as I'm looking at this, some of these track lengths are really long. Let me compare that to No More Tears and see how it stacks up. Yeah, No More Tears it's got some long ones, but you see a lot more like 4-minute tracks. But you get to Osmosis, and there's like fives, sixes, five, six. There are some long tracks here, and I like that. I like how they take you into a world and keep you there for a minute. Ozzy's obviously got some live albums too. I remember he did one, and it was Black Sabbath cover tunes, I think. And if I'm remembering correctly, he was supposed to do it with Randy Rhoads, but of course Randy passed. And Ozzy hates the album. I think it's called Speak of the Devil. And I remember hearing that Ozzy hated it. And I figured it was going to be bad, but when I heard it, I loved it. I think it's a great live album. I think it's really edgy and heavy. It's got a tune on it called Symptom of the Universe, and I will never forget this. My buddy was taking a guitar lesson, and his guitar teacher, he brought the song to his guitar teacher and said, I want to learn this. So the guy like figured it out by ear, and it was way off, and he made it sound really happy. Because I think he did like an open E string, and then he went to like the 5th fret and A chord. So it was like E and A. It was really happy, like Beach Boys kind of feel to it. And my buddy and I was sitting in on the lesson, and we knew it was wrong, and we could not hold in the laughter. We were just like ducking our heads and dying laughing. And the guy probably thought we were crazy. I don't think he knew why we were laughing, but after the lesson, I showed my friend how to actually play it. And that's when I sort of found out I have a decent ear. I can hear something and I know what it is on guitar. I know how to play it, even without, playing it before. But that was so funny. And another live album we loved from Ozzy was Live and Loud. Is this the one that has all the kind of like skits in the middle? I just remember Ozzy sitting in a chair. He's wearing those John Lennon style shades. And he's almost doing like little comedy skits in between the songs. And of course, the songs are awesome. Zakk Wylde's on stage. He's rocking no shirt. He's got the long hair. And he's constantly going side to side, swinging the hair around and playing insane licks flawlessly. Ozzy's running around with the big tattoos everywhere. Bucket of water, just splashing it on people, clapping his hands, and pretty much saying, I can't effing hear you, stuff like that. His usual go-to phrases that he screams. But what a cool album. The case it was in was like a metal grill. It was intended to basically look like a speaker. What a fun idea. And I wish I still had that. I don't. I have a couple of Ozzy cassettes and CDs still, but I didn't save that one. I also looked up some famous incidents and memories from Ozzy using some AI search engines, and wanted to cover these. I mean, look at some of these. The bat incident, 1982. We all know that one. Bit the head off a bat. The dove beheading. So another animal loses its head. During a meeting with CBS record executives. God, when you really think about this, urinating on the Alamo. Whew. Man, he's got some memories. And then I asked it to tell me some lesser known gems. Here's one: working in a slaughterhouse. He did prison time for burglary, and I thought this was really funny. Let's see if I can find this. Yeah, as a teenager, Ozzy committed a burglary, stealing clothes and a TV, which resulted in 6 weeks in prison because he couldn't pay the fine. The TV was dropped during the escape, and the clothes he took were baby clothes. So it was a bungled robbery from the start, is what it says. It's just hilarious. It's definitely Ozzy. Ozzy once snorted a line of live ants. Didn't know that one. He accidentally gave someone a drugged cake, and he pooped in Tommy Lee's hotel room. Quite a legacy. And I look back at some of these crazy moments from his life, and I laugh. But at the same time, I wish I could have thanked him for the decades of music, the endless list of songs, the amazing memories, and providing a big part of the soundtrack to my early life. I heard John Williams once say that if you find the perfect melody to the perfect chord progression, it almost feels inevitable as you're writing it. Like it already existed and you're just sort of helping it take shape. And I feel that way about Ozzy's music. I really do. I think the music and the words and the sound of his voice and the way he sang and the way his persona matched the music, I just think it all fits and it all just seems inevitable. He's the perfect character with the perfect songs, and his music to this day can fire up so many memories for so many different people. Rest in peace, Ozzy. Thank you so much for the music and the memories. And if you're still watching, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear what Ozzy and his music meant to you. Thanks for watching.